Everyone, this is Dustin Maher, and we've got Tracie Hitman Fountain, and we're really excited to be here tonight to share a little bit more, again, some deeper concepts within the nutrition program. You're probably listening to this because you're part of our FM4L 6-week challenge. If so, thanks for your support, and it's really exciting being part of this first group, this beta group. Maybe some of you guys will listen to this later on, and it's past beta at that point, but just thank you for all your support, your enthusiasm, sharing your successes, your challenges. I just started leading 2 of my own groups over the past week, and it's just been one of the coolest experiences of my life just to hear people. We had one woman lose 15 pounds in the first 2 weeks, and she didn't have that much to lose. We had a couple more that were saying they lost 3 to 5 pounds in the first 3 days, just kind of decreasing the inflammation and getting rid of some water weight, and you're not going to lose 5 pounds of fat probably in 3 days. But yeah, so Tracie's the person behind all of this, and she created the program that you are following, the eating plan, and her and I have been great friends for the past 8 years or so. Seems like time's flown by. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tracie. She's going to take over for pretty much the remainder of the time from here on out. Welcome, Tracie.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. As Dustin said, we've been friends for a long time, and it's just been great to see the programs that he's creating really transform moms' lives, and I'm just really happy to be here tonight. And like Dustin said, we want to make this interactive and fun. I don't want it to be another boring nutrition talk that you're half falling asleep or half paying attention to. So we're going to ask you to use that question box. I'm going to ask you questions. You can ask me questions in that box, and I'll try to do my best to get to your questions, especially at the end. We're going to save some time at the end. But definitely encourage participation along the way. Some people were kind enough to let us know that they can hear us, so we are going to get going so we can be respectful of your time. How many of you, and you can type this in the question box, feel like there's a lot of conflicting information out there about nutrition? Yes or no? It's kind of a funny question, but I want to see that we're all in agreement that I always tease that one day they say eggs are the world's best food, and then the next day they're going to kill us if we eat them. So I know how it is to be really frustrated and not really know what to do with your nutrition choices. And I like to show this picture of myself. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself before we get going so you know where I'm coming from. That I know how it feels not to look and feel your very best. And I know I'm talking to a group of moms, and I get the pleasure to be a mom in February. I'm pregnant now, but I don't have children yet myself. But at the same time, I actually had a surgery that was, they say, actually worse than a C-section. So I've almost had a baby, and I suffered from a lot of hormone imbalances. And what's great about my story now is that a long time ago, I was diagnosed with something called endometriosis. And endometriosis, for a lot of women, causes infertility problems. And I have been able to overcome a lot of my health concerns, namely endometriosis and thyroid problems, and the 35-pound weight gain that you'll see in the picture there, because this is more what I look like right now, so I hope you can see the difference. That I know how it feels to be sick, not to be in the body that you want to be, and to overcome all that, partly by changing your diet and some of lifestyle factors. But tonight we're gonna stick with the diet stuff, so I hope that the information that I'll share with you and will be very helpful. Another thing that I want to ask everyone to put into the question screen is, does everyone agree to keep an open mind? I want to see a lot of yeses, that you're agreeing to keep an open mind tonight, because what I'm going to tell you might challenge what you hear out there about nutrition. But if we look around this country, I think we can all agree that a lot of people that think they're doing the right thing aren't looking and feeling very good. So just asking you to keep an open mind, and like I said, I'll be happy to answer questions throughout the presentation tonight. But
yeah, I just want to chime in right there too, because we both get a lot of feedback and people saying, like, we're going to talk about coconut oil, for example, saying that the saturated fat is bad for you, or my doctor says I got to watch my cholesterol. And no offense to any doctors, because they're great, they do amazing things, but they don't really spend, like, I've heard up to like 3 hours in their whole entire 8 years of training on nutrition, something really small. And even potentially what the information they're being provided is from maybe government stuff, which that's a whole other rabbit hole to go under. But there's just a lot of things out there that are misinformation or just plain lies because of money reasons out there. So, we have a lot of respect for doctors, I think, but certain areas, of expertise aren't their expertise. And not everything that the media says, the doctors say is necessarily the truth or what's the best. So I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah. Based off that, I just wanted to share with you that, my health struggles led me down the road to getting a master's degree in holistic nutrition. So my degree I'm not a registered dietitian, but I was taught that more along the lines of whole food nutrition. What are some of the underlying imbalances that are causing health problems in our current body? So I have a completely different training, but have seen amazing results with the information I'm going to share with you tonight. So I hope you guys are excited to learn more. So first of all, we're going to get started with some of you. Hopefully, if you signed up early enough, I sent you some handouts that go along with tonight's presentation. If you don't have them, you can simply email me, and I'll be sending you a follow-up email with those handouts that you can follow along with. And the first question on your handout is, we have to think of our food as our blank. What do you guys think the answer to this is? Food should be your blank. Let's see some stuff. I see some good answers. Energy, fuel, question mark, fuel. Yes, I see a lot of, and you're exactly right. Food, we should really think of food as our fuel. So if we are thinking of food as our fuel and we're putting this kind of stuff in our fuel tank, what do you guys think the end result's going to be, good or bad? Probably not great. And to take this idea a step further, I like to think of your body as a vehicle that you're driving through life. And we all only get one vehicle. And the more that you can change and put good fuel in your fuel tank, the better off that you're going to be. And I call the modern symptoms that we all experience in our bodies check engine lights. So when you continuously put bad fuel into your fuel tank, your check engine lights are going to go off. And these are some examples of check engine lights. So just to go through these, the guy in the corner has acne on his skin, back pain, depression. How many of you are really tired in the afternoon? Joint pain. And if you can type anything in the question screen that you currently have as a check engine light, weight gain around the midsection. How many of you crave carbohydrates in the afternoon or right before you go to bed? I saw that as a food struggle earlier in the chat screen. These are all signs that there's something not going right in your body. And you'll all notice the girl who's lifting up her shirt. If she put her shirt down, she would actually look thin. Another thing I want to mention is thin doesn't equal healthy. And the reason why I have her on there is because so many Americans are struggling with digestive issues too. Bloating, constipation, gas, that sort of thing. Some of my thinnest clients have some of the most significant health problems. So we can't always associate being very thin with healthy. But listening to your body is really, really important. And I see some of you talking about carb cravings and joint pain. And some of the tips I'm going to give you on the webinar tonight are really going to help you cut those carb cravings so you don't feel like the girl in the corner eating the chocolate bar right before you go to bed. So we want to get rid of check engine lights, and by changing your fuel, that can really, really help. I'm going to launch something called a quick poll. And what's great, I have a question for you. The poll is going to say, and I want you guys to guess, just to keep this exciting tonight and interactive. How many foods do you think that the average grocery store has currently in this country? So I want you to pick, is it 22,000, 47,000, 36,000, or 60,000 foods? So I want to see what you guys think. So 67% of you are coming in, so between 47 and 60,000 foods. That's kind of the runners up. So I'm going to close the poll down because it looks like most of you Did it? And the answer to the question is 47,000 foods are in our current grocery store shelves, which has changed, significantly over the last 100 years. And when we look at those foods, we are going to see 3 prominent ingredients in our processed foods that you're going to see at the grocery store. And I want you to guess what you think those 3 prominent ingredients might be in the question screen. 3 prominent ingredients you're going to see in most of our processed foods of those 47,000. Linda, great. You said corn syrup. Part of that is right. Someone said sugar, fat. Someone said preservative, soy, corn syrup, flour. You guys have hit most of them, but we need to break those up kind of into bigger packages. The 3 most common foods that we're going to see is we're going to see wheat, we're going to see corn, and we're going to see soy. So we're going to see these foods and byproducts of these foods in probably about 95% of our processed foods. And the reason that is, does anybody know in the question screen, why do we see varieties from high fructose corn syrup to soy lecithin to flour? They're cheap. Exactly right, Cassie. They are super, super, super cheap. And they use them as fillers to cheapen our food. So when you go to pick up a package now that used to be a clean ingredient, you're going to see them trying to cheapen it. Even our meats today are full of corn, wheat, and soy because we have so much of them and they're subsidized by the government. Just encourage you guys to really think about what kind of fuel source that you are putting in your body. So right now when you're going to the grocery store, what things are you thinking of before you decide if you're going to buy a food or not? What is helping you determine what to put in your shopping cart? You can put some answers in the question screen. Is it fresh? I love that, Peggy. Is it fresh? So a lot of people these days, cost, quality, taste, absolutely. Those are good, definite things. Hormones, few ingredients. Whole foods. Yes, I like the fact that some of you guys are thinking about what the ingredients are. Fresh fruits and vegetables, shopping the outside of the store. Exactly. You guys have a lot of great suggestions. All grocery stores are lined up the same way. All the fresh food is on the outside of the grocery store, and then because of the refrigeration, and then most of the processed foods are going to be in the center aisle. So when I'm going to the grocery store, I personally use 2 simple rules, to determine if I'm going to buy a food. The first one is, do you know what the ingredient is? And if you don't, should you be eating it? If food is our fuel and you look at the label and you're like, what the heck is that? Probably shouldn't be putting that in your result or in your mouth. And the second rule is, did your great-grandmother eat it? And I have clients that are very smart and will say, I know what high fructose corn syrup is, so I'm going to eat it. So the great-grandmother rule will always trump the first rule. Has it been around for 100 years? The 100-year-old rule. So those are the 2 rules that I use to judge whether or not I'm personally going to choose to consume a food. You guys think you can remember that? Hopefully that those are 2 simple things that you can stick in the back of your mind. Based on that rule, I want you guys to guess. I'm going to walk through this product, and I want you to guess what it is in a second. Hold on before we start guessing too much. The one thing about reading labels is the first ingredient is always the most prominent in the product. And then it goes down from there. So let's look at this particular product, and then in the chat screen in a few minutes, I'll have you guess what you think it is. The first ingredient is soybean oil. That's not a shocker, because remember, wheat, corn, and soy are our 3 most common ingredients. We have water, egg yolk, sugar, salt, cultured non-fat buttermilk, natural flavors. Again, you see soy. We've got garlic, phosphoric acid, which helps preserve, xanthan gum. I'm sure a lot of you, if you start looking at labels, you're going to see a lot of gums in your food. And gums in your food, we think about all the digestive issues that I talked about, and you think about gum, the stickiness, and the irritation that gums can cause. A lot of my clients get rid of gums out of their diet, and a lot of their digestive problems get better. Modified food starch. There's also something called monosodium glutamate, which is the long version of MSG. MSG for a lot of my clients can cause digestive issues like diarrhea or migraine headache. That's a preservative and flavor enhancer they use in food. Artificial flavors, disodium phosphate, citric acid, and then some things that I can't even say. So we know that this is definitely breaking the great-grandmother rule, but I bet all of you at some point in your life have eaten this. So Cassie guessed salad dressing. So I'm going to challenge you guys to guess specifically what salad dressing this is. Ranch dressing, you got it. What brand that we all had? What's the famous ranch dressing brand? Hidden Valley, you got it. So this is Hidden Valley Ranch dressing. Now, the reason I put this one up here is because on my blog I have a healthy ranch dressing recipe that I think tastes better than this, and you'll know what all the ingredients are. So you can make these things very simply. I just made them for some kids that we do Big Brothers Big Sisters, and they came over. They're kind of picky eaters, and they love the ranch dressing recipe that I make, and it's really, really simple to make for your kids. And you're going to get rid of all the junk in it. So, hold on one second. I can't see your screen. I just see a full question. Okay, Linda is saying that my screen, I might have to, hold on one second. Let me see if I can shut down this whole, sorry, one second.
Let us know. Can you see now?
Okay, all right, sorry. Sorry guys, we're running into. Well, can you guys type in what screen you're actually seeing? Are you seeing a go-to? Are you actually seeing the presentation now? Okay. How's that presentation now? Okay, we're on a roll. Yay! Sorry about that. Getting all hot and sweaty in here. I don't like that. Okay, good. We're back on track here. So talking a little bit about the ingredients, just really making sure that you guys know what's actually going in your products, and knowing that there's a lot of healthy alternatives out there to things like ranch dressing. Does anyone have any specific questions on any ingredients that they would like to know more about that aren't on this label, but maybe something else that they've seen on their packages before? Any other quick questions before we keep moving on? So the reason I showed you guys this, what is soy protein isolate? Okay, I'll talk about that. Any other questions? Soy protein isolate, it's a processed form of soy. So the first thing that I think about is the great-grandmother eats soy protein isolate. So we know that that's automatically going to break the great-grandmother rule, for one. So that's something important to remember. So they're isolating out the protein from, because if you look at soy as a plant, it has protein, carbs, and fats in it. So they're processing to the point where they're isolating the protein. That's what soy protein isolate is. But that's going to break the great-grandmother rule, and that's one of the reasons I don't recommend it. And we'll talk about some other reasons why in a little bit. So when I think about food, I think about putting them into categories of called red light, green light, or yellow light foods. And what I mean by that is when we pull up to a green light in our vehicle, green light means go. So go foods are great-grandmother foods. Red foods are foods that she would have never eaten, so you should stop eating those. And yellow light foods are foods that she did eat but might not work for you. So, for example, a yellow light food for a lot of my clients is gluten, or it might be nuts and seeds, or some of my clients can't eat a salad because they have a lot of digestive issues. So it varies from person to person, but tonight I really want to focus on the green light foods and looking at how just eating green light foods can really change how you look and feel. So we are going to break the green light foods into 3 different categories of protein, carbs, and fat. And want you guys to first guess which foods fall into the protein category. This might not be new information, but sometimes people are surprised by this. So in the question screen, please give me some feedback on so meat, awesome. What else falls into the protein category? Meat, eggs, dairy. You got it, Laura. Nice. What else? You're right. We've got things like chicken, beef. Lana, I'm glad you brought that up. Peanut butter. This is in nuts. Another person said nuts. This is something that a lot of people find interesting. Is I actually categorize nuts and seeds into does anybody know what category nuts and seeds actually belong in? Because there's more fat. You got it. There's actually a lot more fat than protein. So I put those in the fat category, not that there is not protein in there. Now, some other people said legumes. Does anybody know what legumes are actually higher in than protein? I put them in a different category. Carbs. Exactly. They're a lot higher in carbohydrates. So again, they do have small amounts of protein, but much higher in carbs, so they go in the carb category. So when I ask you what foods are in the fat category, you can say nuts. What foods are in the carb category, you can say legumes. The next one here is somebody mentioned eggs, and then I have cheese and dairy, fish and shellfish. Does anyone want to take a guess at what that last picture is? Might be a little bit fuzzy on your screen. Gelatin, Jell-O, yeah. Does anybody know how great-grandmother got gelatin into her diet? You know that she did not eat J-E-L-L-O. How did great-grandmother get gelatin into her diet? And I'll give you a hint. You guys are getting it right here. This is a picture of my homemade bone broth. And the homemade bone broth, you can see, when it's cooled from the refrigerator, it's very thick and gelatinous. And that's how great-grandmother got gelatin into her diet. She would eat the whole animal. If you look at the grocery stores these days, a lot of the meat products are just full of, or the shelves are just full of muscle meat, like chicken breast and steaks and that sort of thing. We don't use the bones like we used to. So what this is, like I said, is a picture of my homemade broth. And when I make soup and it gets heated, then that broth will go into a liquid consistency. So I want to talk to you a little bit about gelatin. And I know on the forums there's been a lot of questions about what the heck gelatin, why gelatin. I think gelatin is a food, I call it a VIP, a very important protein, because I've seen it change people's life. And what it's great at doing is when you eat the whole animal and you're making broth or using gelatin in a powder form, it can help lower inflammation in the body. And I think we all can agree inflammation is typically not a good sign. It's not a sign of health. So gelatin helps lower inflammation, and it's exactly what we're looking to do is lower inflammation. Especially it seems to work well in joint tissue at lowering inflammation. So as you guys are working out and doing more of the DVDs and getting moving, a lot of times we get sore and stiff, and gelatin can be a great way to help you reduce inflammation. It contains 2 amino acids called proline and glycine that you don't find in high amounts in any other food in our diet. I'm also a realist knowing that not everybody is going to make bone broth. I will send you a link tomorrow with instructions on how to make your own bone broth. I just made a bunch of batches in my pressure cooker this weekend that turned out fabulous. So it's a great time of year to start incorporating bone broth, but also busy schedules, people aren't always interested in doing that. So there's a couple other ways to get gelatin in your diet. You're going to see the orange canister from Great Lakes Gelatin. Great Lakes Gelatin orange canister is more similar to like a Knox gelatin. It needs a hot liquid to dissolve, and it will thicken when you put it in the refrigerator. So it's great for a Jell-O recipe. You can make marshmallows. You can do kind of fun stuff with that type of gelatin. That is called non-hydrolyzed gelatin. If you live in Madison area, you can find that at Woodman's in the natural sections. Otherwise, you can find it on Amazon and you can order it online. The other type of gelatin is called hydrolyzed gelatin, and that type of gelatin is in the blue canister. And the blue canister gelatin will mix with any soft food or liquid. So any soft food or liquid can easily be mixed in with the gelatin. It doesn't change the taste or texture of your food, which is why it's pretty unique. So would encourage you guys to think about or try the gelatin, because that is one thing for sure that I've seen really help people feel better and lower inflammation. Peggy mentioned that Apple Wellness in Madison also carries gelatin too. That is good to know. I did not even know that. Woodman's carries, again, both types of gelatin. The blue canisters can be found up by the other supplement powders in the front of the store, and the orange canister is more used for baking. In my recipes that I give out, I use both types of gelatin depending on what kind of recipe you're making. Now, don't try to make Jell-O with the blue canister. It will never, ever, ever work. So what's really, really important to do is make sure that you're thinking about eating the whole animal and adding some anti-inflammatory gelatin to your diet. If you're starting out, I recommend 2 tablespoons a day in a soft food or liquid. So you can put it in things like you can put it in your tea in the morning. It dissolves in there. You can put it in shakes. You can do, I put it in applesauce sometimes and just mixes and dissolves. So there's lots of ways that you can do that. And there's, it looks like in the chat screen that the Hometown Pharmacy in Pittsburgh also carries some details now. So lots of great resources. I think this is one of the foods that's going to really become popular in the next couple of years because people are going to see the huge health benefits of adding gelatin. I can't tell you the transformations I've seen in people. I have people thanking me all the time for introducing into this product because of the changes that they are seeing with the reduction of inflammation. Is there any other questions about gelatin before we keep moving on here so we can stay on time tonight? Any other questions about gelatin? Kind of a new thing that not a lot of people have heard of or tried. But I had my scoop today, and it's really helped. Yeah, it's a new thing, and just like we'll talk about coconut oil in a few minutes, coconut oil is gaining more popularity, but I think gelatin is going to be hitting the scene pretty big in the next couple of years. So if you think of more gelatin questions, we can ask later. So that was the protein category. Now let's get into fats. What foods fall into the fat category? Just quickly, when asked how much each day, I recommend 2 tablespoons, which in the blue canister is a scoop. So 1 scoop to 3 scoops a day for adults. You got it. Someone said peanut butter. So nut butters, legume butters are going to fall into the fat category. Absolutely. Absolutely. What else falls into the fat? Avocados and butter. Awesome. Anything else? What did a Mediterranean grandmother consume? Yeah, there's a lot of oils that fall into the fat category. Olive oil, you got it. Yep. What did great grandmother have eaten 100 years ago as her main source of fat that I just put up on the screen? Lard. Yeah, you got it. Now, the biggest difference that I want to point out between the lard of today and the lard of 100 years ago is, one, what the cows, or excuse me, the pigs, lard comes from pigs, what the pigs are eating. What are the pigs eating these days, typically? What foods that are common in our processes? Corn and soy, you guys got it. So they're eating a ton of corn and soy, and that actually changes the fat content and the nutrient density of the lard. So I only recommend lard from local farms where their pigs are being pastured. So lard from the grocery store, not a great idea, but that is a great grandmother fat. Butter, I always say butter makes everything better. So good Butter has been around forever. Mediterranean grandmothers would have had olive oils, nuts and seeds, and that goes to nut butters and everything like that. Ghee, Ghee. Has anyone heard of ghee before? Does anybody know what ghee is? I've seen a lot of things coming through. Oh, it's a new one. So clarified butter, you got it. So it's a clarified butter, and it actually originates from India, and it does not need refrigeration, and it can cook at higher heat. So it's a fat, like say you're going on a camping trip and you don't have refrigeration, you can carry a jar of butter for your cooking fat. So very traditional fat, it's been around forever. Tropical grandmothers had coconut oil products. Avocados fall into the fat category. And then we have cream. So it surprises a lot of people, as Dustin mentioned before, is a lot of the fats I'm telling you we hear out there are bad for us, like butter, coconut oil because it's saturated, things, nuts and seeds are pretty okay now. But what I've seen changing the types of the fat in your diet totally change people's lives. I was just meeting with a couple today. I was working with a husband and a wife, and she just had a baby and was trying to work on losing some weight, and so was he. And she's like, when I first heard that you're telling me to eat butter and coconut oil, I was thinking this girl's going to kill me. And now, after they've been working with me for 2 months, she's lost 40 pounds and he's lost 30 pounds. And she's like, I'm a believer now, butter believer and a coconut oil believer, because the one thing that fat does is it helps keep you full. And we've been afraid of these traditional fats, I would say, the last 50 years in this country. And are we getting thinner? It's the question I always ask. Everyone looks around and says, absolutely not, we're getting fatter. And one of the things that fat does is it keeps us full and satisfied, so we're not overeating other foods. And so we've gotten away from these foods, but we have started eating another category of foods called PUFAs, or polyunsaturated fatty acids. And that's things like soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil. PUFAs are in about 95% of your processed foods. And those oils are very unstable. And we've increased their consumption by about 300% in the last 50 years, and look at what's happening to us. Everyone always remembers this little saying, PUFAs make you puffy. PUFAs make you puffy. And as we've increased our PUFAs, you have gotten a lot puffier. So again, I would just really encourage you to look at your labels and try to reduce your PUFA intake and think about some of these great-grandmother fats like coconut oil. So a couple things about coconut oil. Coconut oil is a medium-chain fatty acid, and your body can actually use it more for an instant energy source. And what's great about using it more for an instant energy source is that it can help some people increase metabolism. So that's why it's specifically great for weight loss goals, coconut oil. And you'll see that little watch for a poo factor little thing up there. And the reason I say that is because coconut oil also has special fatty acids that can help support the good bacteria in your digestive tract and help get rid of the bad. And when that adjustment is happening for some people, it can cause kind of like almost like a die-off or a reaction, where if they take too much coconut oil and they're not used to it, it can cause what I call the poo factor. So I don't want to be responsible for anybody having any accidents by taking too much coconut oil. So I'd just like to mention that you want to start out slow with coconut oil, like a half a tablespoon a day. But you're going to see it a lot in the recipes that you have as part of the program, because it's such a healthy fat. It can be cooked at a decently high temperature without going rancid. It's got a lot of helpful benefits to it, like the digestive part. Some of my constipated clients, it's like their best friend. They have their coconut oil, they're good to go. Also, they're looking at research with coconut oil, Alzheimer's, and dementia, because it's helping feed the brain. It gives the brain energy to think better. So lots of great things going on with coconut oil. And if you don't want it to taste like coconuts, make sure that you get the kind that either says refined. So Spectrum Refined is a brand that's common. Or you'll see the Tropical Tradition little logo there. They have their expeller press. They don't use chemicals to extract the flavor, but it doesn't taste like anything. My husband hates coconut. I don't really like a real coconutty flavor either. So I love the kind that doesn't taste like anything. It's really, really easy to use. So coconut oil can be a great addition to your diet and your weight loss program, and it's really simple to just cook with. You can saute. You also can melt it in hot liquids. I have a tea every morning where I put gelatin and coconut oil in it, and I just drink that down, and you don't need chapstick anymore if you use it like that. So coconut oil can be a great addition to anybody's diet. Is there any specific questions that you have about coconut oil before we move on? Coconut oil questions. All right, looks like we're good to go, which is great. So Spectrum brand is a brand you can find in the grocery stores. Yeah, you know, a lot of grocery stores are carrying it across the country, across the board. I don't know if I'm talking to people just in Madison. Woodman's again in the natural section, but most grocery stores, especially in their ethnic aisle, will carry coconut oil. You just have to really look for that Exceller Pressed or Refined. Spectrum is a good brand to find in the grocery store that doesn't use chemicals to extract the oil. Are there any that you should stay away from? The brands I'm recommending are pretty across the board spectrum. You're making sure that they're not using chemicals to get that and high heat. So the reason why I specifically choose Tropical Traditions and Spectrum to talk about is because I know they do it right. Tropical Traditions is only found online, and if you go through my website, I'll send you a link in an email follow-up tomorrow. If you go through my website, you're going to see a link to get a free cookbook with your first order if you've never ordered from them before. So what I tell people with Tropical Traditions is wait until they have a free shipping coupon and then place your first order there so you get free shipping, and their coconut oil is usually a really good price. And then you also get that free coconut oil cookbook with your first purchase. So I really like Tropical Traditions, but Spectrum brand, Costco is carrying a brand, but theirs tastes like coconut, so it just depends if you like coconut flavor or not. But you're looking for a label or a company that is not using chemicals to extract the oil. So hopefully that'll help you a little bit. A couple of things about fat, because working with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women, the one thing is that a lot of women are afraid of fat. And we've been on this low-fat movement forever. And when I tell them to add coconut oil, and I'll make sure I send you that link to the company, that's a good resource for you. People get freaked out about adding fat to their diet because they think they are going to get fat. Just like my client I was telling you today, she's like, gosh, I thought I was going to gain a bunch of weight, and look at what's happened to me and my husband. We're both doing awesome, and we're headed in the right direction. But we need fat to, as an energy reserve, but it also helps you feel full and satisfied. It slows the release of carbs into your bloodstream, and it helps you absorb fat-soluble vitamins. So those are just some examples of how fat can actually be very, very helpful for you in your diet. So just keep in mind that when you are trying to make changes, that most people that I work with, especially women, are having a hard time losing weight because of the amount of everyone's favorite category in their diet, and that's the carb category. And what having enough fat does is that it helps you keep your blood sugars in check, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Okay, so let's look at the carb category. Oh, I actually want to address this, because this is a great comment that someone just said, that's really hard for people if they're using calorie trackers like MyFitnessPal. They're going to set for you recommendations on your protein, carb, fat grams. And when you look at those, based on your goals, it's going to tell you that your fat grams are way too high and that you're never going to reach your weight. if weight loss goals if you're adding fat. But the one thing I want to mention, which is a great time to say this, is that you guys are not a bank account. You ladies, I should stop saying you guys. I need to say that. You ladies are not a bank account. Our bodies are biochemistry labs. So when we look at how our body's responding to certain foods, based on your calories in, calories out principle is what those fitness trackers use. So I tell people, I teach people to look at their grams, meal by meal, day by day, but I try to tell them not to focus on what those trackers are telling you. And I know that's really hard to kind of get your mind over, but I've just seen it work too many times to know that that's a hump that a lot of us have to get over when we're trying to lose weight. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Let's go into the carb category. What foods fall into the carbohydrate category? Yep, so for bread, grains, you got it. Fruits, vegetables, bread, yeah, you guys are hitting them all. Awesome. So we've got things like bread, grains, you've got vegetables, all fruits, sugar, I saw someone say sugar, things like potatoes above and below ground vegetables, beans and legumes, and then everything delicious. See, I told you guys, we love carbs, right? And then also, a glass of milk has mostly carb and then protein second. So I do put it in the carb category even though it has a decent amount of protein. And it's not that you can't have these foods, but we just need to eat them appropriately. And I want you to remember that all carbs end in OSE. So there's fructose in fruit, there's lactose in milk, sugar is sucrose, breads have glucose, beans have glucose and cellulose. So all carbs end in OSE, and it's the OSEs in our country that are really, really causing a lot of our health problems because they are delicious, and a lot of our easy, convenient foods fall into the OSE category. And let's think about the typical American's breakfast. What is the typical American's breakfast? Or maybe what is something that you ate this morning? Cereal and milk, you got it, right? What are those full of? Those are full of OSEs. You might add some fruit to it, but guess what? More oats. So when you eat the standard American breakfast, you're going to see a spike in your blood sugar. You're going to see a spike in your blood sugar, and then you're going to see a crash. Yeah, someone mentioned that they had the baked oatmeal recipe, and I tried to add protein to that. I'm going to teach you why that's super, super important to that. But when, we look at what a lot of our kids eat and just, what people are doing on the go, they don't eat anything, or they're eating a lot of OSEs. And then we get that spike in the blood sugar, and then we get a crash. How do you feel when you have a blood sugar crash? How do you feel? What are some symptoms that might come up? Tired, I see a lot of tired. Grumpy, yes, grumpy is a huge one. I lose my focus and concentration. Hungry, weak, shaky, you get headaches. Those are all great examples of how you feel when you have low blood sugar. And the thing I want you guys to know about low blood sugar is low blood sugar raises your stress hormone. How many of us already have enough stress going on? We're already stressed out. So low blood sugar increases your stress hormone. And we want to make sure that we are keeping our blood sugar stable throughout the day and not going the ups and downs. Because when you get low blood sugar, guess what? I know a lot of you were saying, I can't make good choices because I'm craving food. I crave, and then my blood sugar is low, and then I'm going to pick a bag of chips, or I'm going to pick that candy or whatever's around, or donut. And then that shoots your blood sugar up and you feel better for a moment, and then you crash again. And that's what's creating a roller coaster to one specific disease state. Does anyone know what disease state that blood sugar dysregulation causes? Diabetes. You got it. Diabetes. They used to call it adult onset diabetes. Now they call it type 2 because so many children are getting it. And what's amazing to me about balancing your blood sugars and this whole process is it can be completely avoidable with diet and lifestyle. I'm talking about type 2, not type 1. That's a whole different story. But we can avoid this by balancing your blood sugars, and I'm going to teach you how to do it tonight. And I've done this presentation for thousands of people. I've worked one-on-one with so many, and not one person that I've ever worked with in the beginning has been doing this right. And this is following what I call the balance rules. And the balance rules are: do not eat a carbohydrate by itself. Can you understand now, after seeing what happens to your blood sugar when you eat an oat alone, even if it's a healthy oat, even if it's a piece of fruit, even if it's, carrot sticks? When you eat a carbohydrate by itself, it spikes your blood sugar and then you crash. It spikes your blood sugar and then it crashes. And then the other thing that people, and you get on that cycle we were just talking about, and the other thing that a lot of individuals have never heard before is don't eat protein alone. Because we're getting into a culture that kind of an Atkins, or another word is Paleolithic eating or paleo diet, that are very high protein diets. So what I'm seeing on the other end is people that have been eating a lot of high protein diets is that they get a lot of the same symptoms as people who go up and crash. So for example, I was working in an office where all the office managers were doing the Atkins or kind of paleo program together. South Beach is another one. And none of us wanted to come to work every day. Does anyone know why? We didn't want to show up for work because they were all so crabby. So a lot of people with low blood sugar get crabby. And that's where these diets can be sustained only for a certain period of time, because once you mess up your hormones to a certain extent, people lose a bunch of weight, but then they gain it all back because they cannot sustain it. So when I recommend a meal and snack, I'm always taking a protein and a carb and putting them together. So when you are looking at your menu plans and everything that you got with your materials, I'm always looking at picking my protein first, then adding my carb. Pick my protein, add my carb. And then fat just kind of typically comes along for the ride. And that's why I think it is so important to start following these balance rules. And I've seen huge changes, from weight loss to those cravings that you all are talking about being so strong. When you start balancing your blood sugars, those tend to go away. So eat a carb and protein. So for example, for breakfast, if you had Greek yogurt has a lot more protein than other yogurts do. Greek yogurt, like Fage is a good brand. Fage yogurt with some fruit or honey. You've got your protein in the yogurt, and then you've got your carb with the honey or fruit. Another thing you could do is, you'll see the quiches, like the eggs and cheese combinations. Again, I use fruit a lot versus using a lot of grains, just because most of my clients want to lose weight. And I find that to be more effective. It's not that you can't use grains. You're going to see things like Ezekiel bread. Ezekiel is a type of bread that is sprouted, so less impact on your blood sugar because it's higher in protein. So always coming back to the balance rule. Do not eat a carb alone. Do not eat a protein alone. Always putting them together. And as part of your handouts that I sent you, I gave you some more simple, just very simple ideas on how to do balance. I have a bunch of recipes in my cookbook on how to do that. Question that someone just had is, where does quinoa fall? Quinoa is mostly a carbohydrate. Yes, it does have protein in it. Not going to deny that. But if we look at the protein to carb grams, even though quinoa has more protein than other grains do, it's still going to fall into a mostly carb. Carb is the highest, and then fat and protein. It has all of them, but I'm still going to put that in the carb category. Great question. Any other questions on balance? Because this is very important. This is kind of your takeaway tonight. One is eat real food. Two is balance your blood sugars. And like I said, nobody does this. And I run group classes all the time, and they're 8 weeks long, and I have DVDs that are 8 weeks long, and it takes people that long to really get this concept of really balancing their proteins and carbs. And I'm starting with it pretty simple right now, because I'm not going into the details of it with grams and all that stuff. But if you can start just the basics of taking your protein first and having your carbs second, you'll notice a huge change. All right, so let me answer some questions here. So I answered the quinoa question. Do we balance even for snacks? Absolutely. So what you're looking at for each meal and snack is picking your protein first and then adding your carb, no matter which one, whether it's a main meal or a snack. Because if you think about it, if your meals are good but then your snacks are off, it actually is easier to pull your meals off because you're having cravings or you're super hungry. What about sandwiches such as chicken and wheat? Is this a protein and carb? Actually, yes, the chicken would be the protein and the carb would be your bread. I just encourage you to really look at the ingredients on the types of breads you're buying. I mentioned Ezekiel is a brand that's a little bit cleaner. You can find some clean sourdough breads that don't have a lot of additives and other ingredients in it. So, yes, but if you've got a weight loss goal, I'm not going to lie, trying to manage how many grains you're intaking a day can be very helpful at helping you reach your weight loss goals faster. I'm not saying you don't need any grains, but just kind of making sure that you keep that in mind. Another quick question is, what about popcorn? Popcorn for a snack. Popcorn is mostly carbs. You got to watch the fats on the types of popcorn. I don't recommend microwave popcorn at all. If you're doing your own home popcorn or air pots and adding olive oil, coconut oil, or butter, that's okay. But know that it's mostly a carb-fat combo with not a lot of protein. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so I've got a lot of great questions here. But if it's okay with everybody, because the recording only goes for about an hour and we're getting close to that time, I'd like to finish up with a presentation, and then I'd be happy to stay on and answer a lot of these great additional questions that you have about balance. And I saw some other things up there about sugar that I'll make sure I want to hit. But I will make sure that I get to all those in just a second. So again, I want to take you guys back down to eating real food. Do not eat carbs and proteins alone. And even though those things sound very simple, nobody that I've met from the get-go is doing this. So I encourage you to start to really think about that, because by changing your fuel source, you can change your check engine light. And what I love about my job is when I see people changing, I get to hear their stories. Like I was sharing with you that couple that I met with today. I had another client tonight who has been making a lot of changes. She's like, my energy's better, my digestive issues are gone, my joint pain significantly reduced, I'm not falling asleep at my desk, my cravings are gone. Those are the things that I get to see changing every day by changing what you're eating. And then, of course, looking at what you're doing for your physical activity and lifestyle choices, too. So I just want you to take a second and think about what type of check engine light do you want to see different, or do you want to see change? And they always say when you write things down, you actually might do that, maybe. So I want you to think about a couple action steps that you are personally going to take based on the information that you learned tonight. And if anyone's willing to share those action steps in the screen that they're putting on their list, that would, I think that sometimes motivates others or helps other people think of new ideas. What is going to be your action step to change? Because that old saying, right, Dustin, if you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results.
I think Einstein said that.
Yeah, insanity.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try coconut oil. I love that one. Anybody else? Pair your proteins and carbs. Yes, that's going to make a huge difference for you. What else do we have on the proteins and carbs? Yes, so those are all great things. The balance rules, and then just encourage you to start looking at your label. Eat real food. Real food is going to help you feel so much better. Don't bring processed snacks. I love that. I love that. No processed snacks for me today. You didn't do it today. That's perfect. I love to hear that you're already making changes based on what you've learned in the program so far. So love to hear that you guys are changing. So before you go, I just wanted to let you know, if you're interested in learning more, tonight was really the tip of the iceberg of nutrition information, and Dustin and I worked out a great deal. If you're interested in the DVD set that I have, we're giving you a discount on that, so you can email me, and I'll send, again, a link out tomorrow. But, help learning about how to eat, because eating is, what do you say, what percent of the game here?
I'd say about 80%.
80%. You know, I always say you can't exercise off a bad diet. You want to follow what Dustin's saying exercise-wise, but it's really, really important to know what you're putting in your mouth and what your fuel source is. So I've got an 8-week DVD series that's an at-home study course that will help you with the inflammation, the cravings, and really teach you about what you're putting in your mouth in a greater detail. I also have a cookbook that I've sold over 1,000 copies of locally and across the country, actually the world. And it's a great resource that has balanced meals and snacks, real food. Kids like it. And if you're interested, again, you can email me, and I'd be happy to give you $5 off the recipe collection. And if you're struggling with a lot of health problems, like I had the endo and the thyroid, and I just didn't know what was going on, you need some personal suggestions, please contact me for a free 20-minute consult to see if it would be a good fit for us to work more one-on-one together.
I just want to chime in about the 8-week DVD series. I've joked with Tracie because she's been doing these 8-week series for a few years now and just getting great results with my clients. And I told her she needs to record them and get them up so that other people who maybe don't have the time to meet in person in Madison or just geographically don't live close, that they have access to this information. And it's been about 3 years in the making, but she has it now, which I'm super excited and happy for her to be doing. And, you know, it is an investment, but, you know, even if you take away 1, 2, or 3 things that you change and implement, maybe it's, you know, realizing that something you're feeding your kids is really bad for them. It could just be that, and that is well worth the investment, I think, right there. I think you agree that your family's health is worth more than $199. And plus you're supporting not only Tracie but myself, because she's been gracious enough to give me a commission off of it. So we both can continue to improve more and more people and put that money to great use. So yeah, I just recommend if today has really interested you and you want to learn more, education is power. We're getting a lot of education from a lot of different places in the world. A lot of it's not the greatest. So I believe that this is great information. It's what science and the research is telling us right now is the best thing, and it has a lot of evidence to support it just based off of the results that we've seen, you know, in our clients and in our own lives too. So that's my little encouragement for you, and I'll let Tracie keep going.
Yeah, and if you're in the Madison area, I just wanted to let you know too that there's some other ways that you can. We're having a live Nutrition 101 at the Transformation Center next Monday. If you are interested tonight and want to come live next week, great. Otherwise, if you have friends or family in the area, that you can send them that way, and it's a complimentary webinar. I'm also doing a in-person workshop that also just got my certification in life coaching, Value Your Way to Better Health workshop, and that there's information on my website that I'll send you out tomorrow. I'm doing the Women's Expo. I'm doing a talk called Live a Healthy Balanced Life, and that's Saturday, November 23rd. So lots of great ways to get more information with minimal cost. And tomorrow I'll be sending you a follow-up email with links on coconut oil and gelatin and a bunch of great recipes and tips. And if you want to receive that email, even if you're on my mailing list already, you are going to have to click the confirmation link in order to get the email. Because it's just giving you permission to be on my website or on my list. So please do that. If next time I send a newsletter out, you will not get 2 copies of it. You'll be safe there. So those are just some things if you want to learn more. I want to encourage you to check those out. And now I want to go back to questions that you had earlier in this thing. So I'm just going to move up on the chat screen. So for those of you who want to stay on a little bit longer, please don't do so, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. So I'm just clicking up here to see what else we've got for there's a question, will there be, where is the confirmation button on the email you will be sending? Or I'll be sending that tomorrow, and it'll say, in order to receive the email, you just need to confirm the link, and you just press that link, and you'll be good to go. So let's see here. Got to okay, balance rule. Okay, here we go. I'm getting to some questions now. Sorry, I had to go up. So we talked about popcorn already. I can't eat fresh fruit. What are some good carbs to pair with protein? Okay, so for people who are sensitive to fruit, you could do, well, cooked, you know, a lot of my clients can't do fresh, but they can do cooked versions without reaction. So something like applesauce that's baked or baked fruit can work. You can do things like carrots. You can use vegetables that agree with your digestive tract to pair with protein instead of fruit if those aren't working well for you. Small amounts of clean grains for some people work, but for weight loss goals you just have to be a little bit cautious with that. Those would probably be my best recommendations as far as what to do if you can't do a lot of fruit. What do you think about homemade bread is another question. I think homemade bread's fine because you're going to be able to control the ingredients. You can use cleaner ingredients in homemade bread, but the one thing I'll caution you again with weight loss goals is really trying to minimize the amount of grains that you're getting in your diet. Not again saying 1 to 2 pieces of bread a day max would be a good suggestion there. I had a question about microwaves. This gets tricky because I don't know where everyone's at in the seminar. I personally don't use a microwave and haven't used a microwave in years. But I do most of my cooking heating up on the stove or in the oven. But I also am a realist and know that some people don't have the time, or they're at a job where they can't bring hot food, but they need to warm up what they brought. So you just have to. I'm not a big fan. My dad always used to call it like you're zapping your food. And there's been some interesting things posted online. I haven't tried this experiment myself, but they water a plant with microwave water in the same plant, same situation, same soil, everything with non-microwave water, and the microwave water plant dies. So, take it or leave it, but that's just my 2 cents on that. All right, so let's see. What else do we have for questions? Okay. Here's a good question. What do you typically choose to eat when you go out? This is how I think about dining out. I always look at picking my protein first on the menu and then choosing my carbohydrates, just like I told you guys to do. I tend, when I go out, to try to choose restaurants that serve local foods that have, better ingredients, so that when I leave that restaurant, I can feel good. So, for example, I'm trying to think last time I went out. I went to El Dorado Grill a couple of weeks ago, and they have this great local chicken. They had chicken, and then I did get some potatoes. But the thing about it is, if you eat just a little, you're okay. It's just that if you eat the whole mound of it, that's when you get in trouble. And then I had some greens with it. So I'm always picking my protein, the cleanest source I can get, and then I pick my carbs. And I really stay away from a lot of bread baskets, chip baskets. That's when you get in trouble, especially with weight loss goals if you're having a hard time reaching those. So I do go out to dinner. I know Dustin went out to dinner tonight too. And any other tips that you have?
Well, for me, I agree with everything Tracie just said, but I don't go out that much. So when I do go out, it's kind of more my time it's more of a cheat meal. So to be honest, I ate the bread tonight at the Italian place and had it with olive oil. But again, I go out maybe once to twice a week. So pretty much no matter what I did, it'd be hard to do a lot of damage to it. Yeah. So that's kind of my philosophy. But if I'm really, really looking at watching my calories and stuff, I'll either split a meal with someone if the meal size are so large, or of course I would skip the bread or the chips. The chips are my favorite thing. So I'd skip the chips if it's at a Mexican restaurant and just go for the main course. And like you said, go for the protein first and get some sort of vegetable on the side and try to decrease the carbs. Is what I do. I always order water, of course, and I've never in my life ordered, pop. I should say never, but handful of times in my life I ever ordered pop and drinking, going out I don't drink alcohol, of course. So, so for me, that's one thing that's just a no-brainer is don't drink your calories.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. And if you're not going out that much, then I never really feel guilty about my choices because I try to make good choices most of the time. But then I can splurge and be okay with it and not feel bad or guilty because I know that I've eaten well the rest of the time. So hopefully that gave you some suggestions. Another question is, one of my to-go snacks is apple and almond. Is that good, bad? It's mostly a carb-fat combination, which fat does slow the release of carbs, so that for a lot of people can work. Just so that's not super high in protein. But, if it's a snack, I'd rather you do that than eat an apple by itself. All right. What's so special about sourdough bread? Great question. Sourdough bread, if you get a true sourdough bread, which is just, flour, salt, water, and culture, that the sourdough starter, is that the fermentation process that they use in the sourdough making helps make it easier for a lot of us to digest the grains. So sourdough bread is actually very low in gluten, so if people have a slight gluten sensitivity, it's easier for them. I'm not saying they can if they're really sensitive to it, but a lot of my clients will enjoy sourdough bread. It still has the same impact on your blood sugar as regular bread, so it's not a blood sugar thing, but it's more of a digestion thing. That's why I recommend it. That's another great question. Yeah, the plant thing is pretty interesting. All right, so let's see. Any other questions? I know there was a artificial sugar sweetener question. It really was way up that I didn't see. Let's see. Orange juice. Okay, juice. What do you think about drinking fruit juice for breakfast, such as orange, cherry, pomegranate, and small amounts? Okay. Dustin just said don't drink your calories. In general, I totally agree with that. Small amounts of juice with gelatin powder, like pre-workout, I find some people do well, but I'm talking like 4 ounces with 4 ounces of water. So very, very small amount. With a protein, I'm okay if people have small amounts with a protein, never by itself. So those are things that I are okay if you're drinking, again, 100% no additives and junk. The other thing, white cheddar versus yellow cheddar, you'll see on my grocery list that I sent you, I say white cheddar. The reason why is because milk is white, not yellow. They use something called annatto coloring, which comes from a seed, so people think it's fine. But I'm trying to eat what great-grandmother did, and annatto coloring, in order to get that color out, they use a lot of chemicals to do that. So that's got to be transferred in your food to some point. So I try to encourage people to eat white cheese because that's the color milk is. Okay, thanks. This artificial sweetener question is really important to a lot of people. Artificial sweeteners, we know great-grandmother never ate them. And what's pretty significant to know about artificial sweeteners is that there's not been a lot of human studies done on the impact, and I've seen people just get rid of artificial sweeteners. Their migraines go away, they lose weight, they feel better because these things are impacting our brain chemistry. And a lot of my clients that are on artificial sweeteners actually have a lot of problems with cravings because it's affecting the craving center in their brain. So definitely don't recommend artificial sweeteners. If that's one thing you change tonight, I think that would be an awesome change for you to make. I know, and this is a further question with that, I know dietitians refer to those with diabetes because it's not sugar. Do you feel our body holds on to artificial sweeteners because it thinks it will need it but doesn't know what to do with it? I think it's more of just how these chemicals are affecting your brain chemistry and your craving centers. And typically, when I work with people with diabetic that have diabetes, it's really looking at the other types of carbs that are causing more problems. It's not the cane sugar in their diet that's typically causing diabetes. It's more along the lines of the grains and also those PUFAs that I mentioned. Those fats really affect your cell's ability to intake glucose properly. So a lot of my diabetic clients, we are looking at minimizing grains and starchy carbohydrates along with watching their types of fats they're eating, and I've seen great results doing those two things. Let's see. What's your take on stevia? A lot of people will go from, I like stevia better than artificial sweeteners, but a lot of companies are capitalizing on trying to make kind of versions of stevia, like Truvia, for example. A lot of my clients have digestive problems and that come along with those. So just really listen to your vehicle on how you respond to stevia, but I would recommend that over some of the other artificial sweeteners. I'm just a big fan of pure maple syrup, locally, honey, locally, and then small amounts of pure cane sugar. Those things are safe in small amounts. When we get into the processed carbs and breads and pastas and all that stuff, I think that's what's really causing a lot of the health problems today. Lots of great questions. Anything else before we wrap it up tonight? I know we're going a little over. We stayed in the main presentation on time, but we want to make sure that we hit everyone's questions. And as I mentioned, I'll send a follow-up email tomorrow with links and a bunch of other stuff and those specials that we promoted in the overview at the end. Sea salt questions, sea salt. I buy my sea salt at the co-op locally in Madison. I can't even remember what brand it is. You're just looking for sea salt that don't have anti-caking agents in it. Some people like the real salt brand too. So look, I just look for no anti-caking agents. It's just say sea salt, period. All right. So please look for that follow-up email tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation tonight and learned some new things. Coconut oil, gelatin balance, eat real food. Those are all good things to remember. And anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to thank Tracie for taking time out of her busy life and with the baby on the way shortly to do this for us. And just encourage you guys to check out the link that she'll be sending you, and really look at investing in the program. It's for your health. It's a good thing. You can't go wrong with investing in knowledge and expertise from someone who's spent many years studying it and who has studied others who have spent their lifetime studying it. And it's a great way to speed up the learning process and to get great results. So that's all I've got.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Have a great night. Eat healthy and balanced.
Take care.